New best friend's ambassador Thylex pressed his primary manipulator against his temple ridge, fighting the tension headache that had been building for the past 3 solar cycles. The diplomatic briefing chamber aboard the Concordance hummed with nervous energy as 17 different species representatives reviewed their carefully orchestrated first contact protocols for what felt like the 100th time. "Let me understand this correctly," Thylex said, his translator struggling with the concept. "You want to include a human military representative in our diplomatic delegation to the Vorth Empire." Captain Cohen of the Hegemony Defense Corps nodded his massive head, causing his ceremonial armor to chime. Marine Corporal Vera has extensive experience in conflict zones. Her service record includes successful peace negotiations on 6 different worlds. "Peace negotiations," Thylex repeated slowly, "conducted by someone whose primary training involves violence, combat engineering, and tactical assessment," Cohen corrected. "Though I admit the human approach to diplomacy can be unconventional." Through the chamber's viewing portal, Thylex could see the human in question performing what appeared to be ritualistic physical torture in the ship's exercise bay. She was suspending herself from a metal bar, lifting her entire body weight repeatedly while other humans shouted encouragement. The sight made his stomach pouches clench. "The Vorth Empire has been hostile to galactic contact for 2 centuries, Thylex continued. Their warrior caste views diplomacy as weakness. Their emperor's personal guard has killed ambassadors for speaking too loudly in the throne chamber. This mission requires the most delicate, which is exactly why we need Hayes," interrupted Dr. Senna, the mission's cultural specialist. "Humans have this remarkable ability to simplify complex social dynamics." Thylex had seen recordings of human simplification. It usually involved explosions. "The Vorth respect strength above all else," Dr. Senna continued. "Their entire social structure revolves around combat hierarchy and warrior bonds. Traditional diplomatic approaches have failed because we keep trying to negotiate around their culture instead of engaging with it. And you believe a single human marine can succeed where 73 highly trained ambassadors have failed." Captain Cohen's translator made what Thylex had learned was the human equivalent of a laugh. "Ambassador, have you ever seen a human in their natural social environment?" 3 hours later, Thylex was regretting that question. The Vorth homeworld's capital city resembled a fortress more than a diplomatic center. Massive stone structures jutted from barren mountains like broken teeth, connected by bridges that spanned bottomless gorges. The air itself seemed hostile, thin, bitter, and filled with the constant sound of weapon testing from the military districts. Thylex's delegation had been assigned quarters in what the Vorth called the honor guest sector, which appeared to be a barely modified prison complex. Their Vorth escorts were 7-foot-tall walking nightmares encased in ceremonial battle armor, each carrying enough weaponry to level a small building. "Charming architecture," Vera said, stepping off the transport shuttle without apparent concern. She wore simple military fatigues and carried a small duffel bag. Somehow, next to the towering Vorth warriors, she seemed more relaxed than anyone else in the delegation. Krask, the lead Vorth escort, examined her with obvious confusion. His translator collar crackled as he spoke. "You are the human warrior ambassador." "Marine Corporal," Vera replied. "Nice to meet you. You carry no weapons." "Don't need any for talking." Krask's helmet tilted. Through his visor, Thylex caught a glimpse of scarred features and predatory eyes that had seen centuries of combat. "All warriors carry weapons." "I am carrying weapons," Vera said cheerfully. "They're just not obvious." For the first time since arriving, the Vorth escort party fell silent. The first day of formal negotiations proceeded exactly as Thylex had feared. The Vorth Emperor, Corvith the Unconquered, received them in a throne room that doubled as an armory. Weapons of every conceivable design covered the walls, from ancient bladed implements to energy cannons that could crack moon surfaces. Emperor Corvith was 8 feet of scarred muscle and barely contained violence. His throne was carved from the skull of some massive creature, and his crown appeared to be made from the claws of his enemies. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had personally ended thousands of lives. So, he rumbled, "The soft galaxies send more peace bleeders to waste my time." Thylex began his prepared diplomatic overture about mutual beneficial cooperation and shared galactic prosperity. Emperor Corvith listened for approximately 30 seconds before making a dismissive gesture that caused his guards to step forward menacingly. "Enough. Your words have no strength. Your species breeds weakness." His eyes fixed on Vera, who had remained standing casually near the back of the delegation. "Except perhaps this one. You smell different." "That's probably the Deathworld thing," Vera replied conversationally. "Tends to stick with you." "Deathworld," the Emperor leaned forward. "Earth is classified as a Deathworld. Class 12, Vera confirmed. Though honestly, it's not that bad once you get used to everything trying to kill you." Thylex watched in horror as Emperor Corvith's expression shifted from contempt to something resembling curiosity. "Interesting, we will continue this discussion tonight. There will be a feast in the Warriors' Hall. All delegates will attend." As they were escorted to their quarters, Dr. Senna sidled up to Thylex. "Did that just go better or worse than expected? I honestly cannot tell anymore." The Warriors' Hall was exactly what Thylex had feared. A massive stone chamber filled with the sound of clashing metal, roaring voices, and what appeared to be recreational violence. Hundreds of Vorth warriors clustered around long tables, consuming fermented beverages and engaging in what they called strength contests. Competitions that seemed designed to cause maximum property damage and personal injury. Emperor Corvith had positioned himself at the head table, surrounded by his personal guard. The delegation was seated at a secondary table that put them close enough to observe the festivities, but far enough away to avoid accidental dismemberment. "This is a diplomatic disaster," muttered Ambassador Fellern from the coastal systems. "They're treating this like a victory celebration." "They haven't won anything yet," Thylex observed. "Haven't they?" Dr. Senna pointed toward the main table, where Vera had somehow ended up seated between 2 of the Emperor's guards. She appeared to be engaged in animated conversation, while casually consuming what looked like liquid fire. "How did she even get over there?" Thylex asked. "I think she just walked over," Captain Cohen replied, sounding as confused as anyone. What followed was a masterclass in cultural adaptation that Thylex would spend years trying to understand. Vera listened to the guards' war stories with genuine interest, asked intelligent questions about their combat techniques, and shared what she called deployment anecdotes that made the massive warriors laugh, actual laughter, from beings whose species supposedly found humor to be a sign of mental weakness. "She's treating them like colleagues," Dr. Senna observed with growing amazement. "Not enemies, not diplomatic obstacles, colleagues." The evening took a turn when one of the guards, a scarred veteran named Grex, made what appeared to be a challenge regarding human combat capabilities. Thylex couldn't hear the exact words over the ambient noise, but he saw Vera's expression shift into what he was learning to recognize as her professional interest face. "That cannot be good," he muttered. Vera stood, said something that made the entire guard unit roar with what sounded like approval, and walked toward an open area of the hall where several Vorth warriors were engaged in what appeared to be ritualistic combat trials. "Should we intervene?" Ambassador Fellern asked nervously. "With what?" Captain Cohen replied. "She outranks all of us in ground combat situations." What happened next defied every diplomatic protocol Thylex had ever studied. Vera removed her uniform jacket, revealing what appeared to be a simple undershirt and arms that, while obviously muscular for a human, looked impossibly fragile compared to Vorth physiology. The watching warriors formed a circle, and someone produced what looked like a pair of padded clubs. "This is going to be a massacre," Thylex said. It was just not the massacre he expected. The Vorth warrior who entered the circle with Vera was built like a siege engine. His ceremonial armor had been replaced with practice gear, but he still outweighed her by at least 200 pounds and stood nearly 3 feet taller. When the informal match began, Thylex prepared to witness the diplomatic mission's bloody end. Instead, he watched Vera demonstrate why humans were the only species to evolve from persistence predators. She didn't try to match the Vorth's strength. That would have been suicide. Instead, she moved like water, turning his size into a disadvantage. When he swung, she wasn't there. When he charged, she redirected his momentum into the stone floor. When he tried to grapple, she somehow ended up behind him. But more importantly, she was talking the entire time. "Nice stance, you fight professionally. That's a hell of a reach advantage. Oh, that was a good recovery. You train with those weapons regularly." The watching warriors began to cheer, not for blood or victory, but for what appeared to be genuine appreciation of skill. Thylex realized with growing disbelief that this wasn't a fight, it was a demonstration. Vera was showing them something they'd never seen before, a combat style based on intelligence rather than brute force. The match ended when the Vorth warrior, breathing heavily and covered in sweat, raised his hand in what Thylex recognized as a yield gesture. But instead of the expected shame or anger, his expression showed something unprecedented in Vorth culture: respect for someone weaker than himself. "You fight like water," he said, removing his helmet to reveal a genuinely impressed smile. "We have never seen this." "We call it martial arts," Vera replied, offering him a hand up. "Different planet, different predators. Had to learn to fight smart instead of hard. Teach us." The words came from Emperor Vorth himself, who had approached the circle during the demonstration. The entire hall fell silent. Apparently, the Emperor did not often make requests. "I'd be happy to," Vera said, "but it's not something you learn in one night. Takes years of practice." "We have years," the Emperor replied. "How long do your people live?" "About 80 standard years, give or take." "Good, you will stay. Teach my guards this water fighting." "In exchange," he paused, considering. "What does your delegation want?" Thylex felt his brain stutter. They were going to discuss terms, now, in a warrior's hall. After a recreational combat demonstration. "Trade agreements," Dr. Senna said quickly, stepping forward. "Resource sharing, cultural exchange, mutual defense pacts." "Done," Emperor Vorth said. "Grex, bring the treaty documents tomorrow. We will make this human warrior teacher our battle sister and sign whatever papers her pack requires." "Your Majesty," Thylex interjected carefully, "these agreements typically require months of careful negotiation." "Why?" The Emperor seemed genuinely confused. "Your warrior has proven her strength and offered to share knowledge with us. This shows good faith. Do your people fight with honor?" "Well, yes, but do they keep their word?" "Of course, but the specifics." "Then we are allies. Grex, arrange quarters for our new battle sister. The rest of her pack may stay as long as they wish." As the hall erupted in celebration, Thylex found himself standing next to Vera, who was calmly putting her uniform jacket back on. "How?" he asked. "How did you just accomplish in one evening what we've been trying to do for 2 centuries? Vera shrugged. "Different approach. You guys kept trying to convince them that fighting was bad. I showed them that fighting could be better. But the diplomacy, the negotiations, the careful cultural considerations. Look," Vera said gently, "sometimes diplomacy isn't about finding the perfect words. Sometimes it's about finding the right way to connect. These people value strength and honor and loyalty. So I showed them strength, demonstrated honor, and offered to be loyal enough to share my knowledge with them." Dr. Senna approached, still looking stunned. "The cultural implications alone. You fundamentally altered their understanding of what strength means. Maybe, Vera said. Or maybe I just proved that humans fight weird. Either way, they seem to like us now. Emperor Corvith's voice boomed across the hall. Tomorrow, we begin training. Tonight, we drink. Bring the strong wine. Our battle sister needs to learn proper Vorth celebration. As the evening progressed, Thylex watched in fascination as the humans and Vorth discovered an unexpected compatibility. Where other species saw the Vorth's aggressive nature as a barrier to civilization, humans seemed to view it as a different expression of the same survival instincts that had shaped their own evolution. Their bonding over shared trauma, Dr. Senna observed. Both species evolved under constant threat. They understand each other's psychological framework in a way we never could. Is that why the human approach worked? Partially. But watch Vera more closely. She's not just connecting with their warrior culture, she's elevating it. She's showing them that strength can be about more than just overpowering your opponents. Thylex looked across the hall, where Vera was now engaged in what appeared to be a technical discussion with 3 Vorth guards about leverage principles and center of gravity. They were using eating utensils to demonstrate basic physics, and the massive warriors were taking notes. She's teaching them, he realized. She's actually teaching them. Humans don't just adapt to other cultures, Dr. Senna said. They find ways to improve them. It's not cultural imperialism, it's cultural evolution. They see something good and find a way to make it better. 6 months later, Thylex would receive reports that the Vorth Empire had established the first interspecies military academy in galactic history. The curriculum combined traditional Vorth warrior training with human tactical methodology, producing graduates who were somehow both more effective fighters and more effective peacemakers. But that night, in the warriors' hall of the most militaristic empire in the galaxy, Thylex simply watched as a single human marine casually revolutionized interstellar diplomacy by treating potential enemies like potential friends. Remarkable, he murmured. What's remarkable? Captain Cohen asked, settling beside him with a cup of the surprisingly palatable Vorth wine. All of it. The solution was so simple that we never considered it. What solution? Thylex gestured toward the ongoing celebration, where species that had been enemies for centuries were now sharing combat techniques and tactical philosophies. We spent decades trying to change the Vorth. The human just accepted them and found a way to make that acceptance productive. Sounds about right, Captain Cohen said. Humans don't really do impossible. They just do different. Different enough to turn warriors into diplomats. Different enough to show warriors that diplomacy can be its own kind of strength. Across the hall, Emperor Corvith raised his cup in a toast. To battle sister Vera and her pack, may their enemies know fear and their allies know loyalty. The answering roar shook the mountain itself.